So if you were not here on the day that we did this lecture, this is a way for you to get your active listening notes. So we are looking at the American Revolution. Again, this is from the perspective of world history. So we're not going to be going as in depth as you will next year in your US history class. So things I want to start off with is causes of the American Revolution. The big one we're going to start with is the French and Indian War, sometimes called the 7 Years' War. This is a war that the British are going to fight, and a lot of the American Americans are actually going to get drawn into this fight because they were British citizens, right? This is a war fought on American land and into Canada. It's going to be a very expensive war, which is going to double Great Britain's national debt. And the other big thing it's going to do is it's actually going to give a lot of training, military training to American soldiers that'll come in handy later when they decide to rebel. But the big part is doubling Britain's national debt. Because of this, they are going to raise taxes. So a misconception, it's not like the colonists didn't pay any taxes at all. But with this war and with this new debt, they're going to raise a lot of new taxes against the colonists, right? So things like the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, there's a lot more that you'll go over in your US history class, but basically they're being charged money on things that they never had to be charged on before. So this is going to lead to a lot of unrest among the American soldiers, American citizens, right? So this is going to lead to two big events in Boston, the Boston Tea Party and Boston Massacre. Boston Massacre being where British soldiers are going to shoot into a crowd of citizens. And this is going to not make them happy, right? Again, you'll hear more about this in US history. But after these events, it is going to lead to the Intolerable Acts, as they called them, which is going to close the port of Boston and is going to ban American town meetings. So the British felt like the Americans got together and planned this Boston Tea Party and other things. So they want to just stop all of that from happening and also cripple the economy of Boston by closing the port, right? It's kind of like this punishment. All right, so that is eventually going to lead to the First Continental Congress, where 56 delegates from the different colonies are going to meet in Philadelphia in 1774. They're meeting to push back against the British, and they're going to attempt to boycott British goods and arm themselves. We saw this the other day when we looked at the Charleston Non-Importation Act. That was actually before this Continental Congress, but it's a very similar move. King George is still going to refuse to give them any representation in Parliament. Again, goes back to that other document we looked at where they said no taxation without representation. The Americans did not feel like they were getting a say in their government or the taxes or anything. So this is going to lead to war being declared. The war is going to officially start. Battle of Lexington conquered. Following this, delegates are going to meet in Philadelphia and write the Declaration of Independence, containing preamble, Declaration of Rights, list of grievances, which you did that activity for the other day, and resolution. So what will happen? Within America, the two groups are going to be the patriots who support the revolution and the loyalists who are going to oppose it. And just more context, at the time, the British were considered the strongest army in the world. So the small little colony going up against it doesn't really stand much of a chance, right? So we're going to look at 5 important battles. First of which, Battle of Lexington conquered, April of 1775. It's the start of the war, and British soldiers are trying to seize control of colonial weapons and capture rebel leaders. They want to prevent them from having weapons to fight back against them. And also, if you stop the leaders, then they will have no direction, right? Next important battle we're going to see is Battle of Bunker Hill. So we actually are going to see the British defeat the Americans here. But the big reason is the Americans actually run out of ammo. So they shoot so many of the British soldiers that they run out of ammo. So you're going to see a huge disparity in the number of soldiers killed, right? The Americans were at the top of this hill. The British are coming up. So the Americans just get to shoot down at them. This battle is going to show that the Americans can stand up to the more experienced British soldiers. All right, in the last three battles, we're going over Battle of Saratoga. It's an American victory actually led by Benedict Arnold. He's a very interesting figure that everyone always remembers him for his betrayal, but he was one of the most important commanders in the army. And this victory is going to convince the French to support the United States. They're going to say it's not completely a losing battle to back the US, so let's throw our support behind them. Then we're going to also look at the Battle of Trenton. I don't know why I put these out of order. This was a surprise attack that is going to boost morale and show Washington's capabilities, right? This was that famous picture that we looked at of Washington crossing the Delaware River, standing up on the boat that we talked about the other day. This is that battle. Again, the Americans had lost a couple before this, so this was a good way to bring up morale and show them we're not just all going to die in this. And lastly, the Battle of Yorktown. This is seen as the last major battle of the war, and it is going to result in the British surrender and American independence. So I mentioned France. So again, following the Battle of Saratoga, the French are going to form an alliance with the Americans in February of 1778. Then the French are pretty well known for helping, but we are also going to get Spain to help us. So why are they helping us? Biggest reason is not because they cared about what the Americans were fighting for. They cared about all that stuff. They really just wanted to stick it to the British. British are one of their big enemies. So if they can do anything that can take them down a notch, they're going to try to do that. So with the help of the French Navy, the British are defeated at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781. The Treaty of Paris is going to officially end the war at 1783, and it is going to set the borders of the US and Canada, where we currently have it at the top, the north. And it's also going to give Florida to Spain, which obviously becomes a part of the US down the road. So the last thing I want us to consider, since we're in the revolutions unit, was this actually that revolutionary? The country is going to be run under the Articles of Confederation from 1781 to 1787. That's kind of going to be a failure. It's not going to be a very efficient government. And so we are going to write the Constitution or adopt it in 1787, which is the base of our modern government. This is going to create an indirect democracy, democratic republic, where again, we're voting on representatives. We don't vote on every single law and every single thing. That would be a direct democracy, but we vote on people to represent us. But this is that representation that they were talking about, right? Now the taxation with representation. And big thing about was it revolutionary socially, our country doesn't really change that much. Yes, the British are not controlling us, but it's still the wealthy and the elites that are ruling over us. Those in power stayed in power. It's not like the peasants rose up and are now leading the country. It's pretty much the wealthy that were already leading the country. It's just rather than them being wealthy British people, it's wealthy Americans that are leading the country. So that's why we sometimes talk about it as not being as revolutionary as, say, the French Revolution, which we will be getting to. All right, so then just remember, do your summary and reflection, and have a good day.